Welcome to For Book Lovers Only Live Radio, where we discuss amazing books written by talented authors. For Book Lovers Only Live Radio is a proud member of the Village Connector Media Network. If you love books, we have a home for you. Now time for your host and chief book lover, Rob Brown.
Hey book lovers, this is Rob Brown, your internet radio host and chief book lover, and this is For Book Lovers Only Live Radio, where if you love books, we have a home for you. Thank you so much for tuning in today. We are privileged today to have a distinguished retired Army veteran who is also an author as our in-studio guest today. Her name is Felice Pope. Welcome to the show, Felice. And she'll be chatting with us about her book, Stained Glass, Smile, You Can Be Healed. But first, I want to take a moment to give a special thanks to Robin Sullivan, the leader of the DC Right to Publish Meetup Group, for stopping by last week and sharing with us her knowledge of the publishing industry. She is an absolute wealth of information, and we are very excited for her to come back again at some point in the future. Please take a moment to share this broadcast by clicking on the share button at the bottom of your screen. If you're watching this for the first time, we invite you to join our family. Please visit www.forbookloversonly.com. That's www.forbookloversonly.com. It's very simple. You can submit your name and email address and hit click here to join. There is absolutely no cost. It's totally free, and you'll even get a free gift for joining. We want you, our book lovers, our book lover family, to grow. So we invite you to join us today. I want to start off today's broadcast with a little book trivia because I know you like the book trivia. Theodore Roosevelt, leader of the Rough Riders in the Spanish-American War and the 26th president of the United States, read an average of one book per day. That's one book per day. So he was a voracious reader. And we all hope and aspire to be able to read one book a day. I wish I could. I wish I had the time. But Theodore Roosevelt read an average of one book per day. And our second and final piece of book trivia, novelist Toni Morrison, who authored the Beloved series, had a very famous fan in actor Marlon Brando. In fact, he liked her books so much that he would often call her to read to her his favorite passages from her books. I think that's pretty cool when you're an author and you have one of the greatest actors of all time as a fan of your books. So those are some pretty cool pieces of book trivia. And for those who weren't able to tune in next week, I want to take a quick moment and a quick opportunity to announce my book that's coming out. No Business Cards Allowed. It addresses the art of networking and how business development professionals can be more effective at it. Now, for me, having been a former practicing attorney, having done sales and business development and e-discovery in professional staffing in the financial services industry, I've done my fair share of networking. I've been to a lot of networking events, tons of them. I still actually go to them. And when you're there and you're trading business cards and you're having conversations with people, sometimes things may not go the way you want with regards to opportunities that you think are on the table. But then, later on, they really don't come to fruition. So this book teaches specific techniques and strategies to help business development professionals and sales professionals be better at networking. In it, I teach why traditional networking is no longer effective in today's social media world. I talk about the three types of networkers. I also talk about the EB pivot and how to define the maybe, when you should and should not give out your business cards. And there is definitely a time when you should absolutely refuse to give out your business card. So the book may be a little bit controversial, but I think it's going to have some great information for sales professionals and for business development professionals. If you want to learn more, please get on my mailing list at www.nobusinesscardsallowed.com. That's www.nobusinesscardsallowed.com. And I am tentatively scheduled for an October release, so it's plenty of time for you to get on the mailing list. From time to time, and I won't inundate your inbox, but from time to time, I will be sending out emails about the progress of the book, the actual release date, the price, and any other information that's pertinent to you getting a copy of the book in your hands. Once again, that's www.nobusinesscardsallowed.com. So feel free to get on that list and stay abreast of what's going on with nobusinesscardsallowed.com. Now, today's guest is a native of St. Louis, Missouri. She is a proud retired Army veteran and served in both Desert Storm and Operation Iraqi Freedom. She is currently the host of Peace in Living Today talk show and does international inspirational speaking. She's joined us today to chat about her book, Stained Glass. Smile, You Can Be Healed. Through her life story of domestic violence marriages, you see examples of how she compromised her mental and physical well-being repeatedly. But through the freedom that only God gives, she was set free. And we are here to welcome Felice Pope to our show. Felice, thank you so much for being here.
I'm glad to be here. I count it an honor to be here on a book for book lovers only, and I'm excited. I really am.
Well, thank you so much for being here. We are honored that you are here. Obviously, we honor all our authors, but we have particular honor for our service veterans who have served honorably in our United States Armed Forces. So we want to take a special moment to thank you for your service to our nation, especially with Memorial Day coming up very soon. I want to thank you so much for your service.
Well, thank you. Thank you. It's always good to honor veterans and makes them feel good.
Absolutely. They are definitely our heroes, and we love our veterans here at For Book Lovers Only. So tell us a little bit more just about your background. Obviously, you served in the Army, you retired Army. Tell us a little bit about your Army service.
Well, I first started off in the National Guard because I saw the ad in the paper, be all you can be.
Right.
And then I saw the other part that says that they're going to pay for my college, and I was excited about that. So a friend of mine said, don't go into regular Army until you try the National Guard or Reserve. So I did the National Guard for maybe about a year. And then I decided to go to the regular Army. And I served, I think, 2 active duty tours. And the rest I did in the reserves. And I love traveling. I went to Germany twice. I went to Holland. I've been around the United States a couple of times, but I loved it. And I am kind of patriotic. When you're overseas and you see that American flag, it means so much when you talk about liberty and you talk about freedom and you think about fairness and what rights we have here. They're not always reflected in other countries because they don't have that same democracy. So I love my country. I know it might sound corny, but
no,
I love my country.
Absolutely, absolutely. Like I say, we love our veterans and we really value their service. So obviously, you're an Army veteran, but you're also an author, and you have written "Stained Glass, Smile, You Can Be Healed." Now, this is a very interesting book because in this book, you kind of show your vulnerability. It's sort of a duality because as a member of the armed forces, as a member of the Army, you're perceived as a strong person.
Yes.
You're perceived as a tough person.
Yes.
And you show a lot of vulnerability in your book. Kind of tell us a little bit about, some of the things that have happened to you that you talk about in this book.
Well, in the book, I kind of talk about how we wear this persona, this smiley face. And when I say smiley face, I'm not talking about that smile that you keep people out of your business. I'm talking about that smile that you hide from your own self. Well, when I was about 4, I started wearing my face. I got molested as a child. And my parents were always protective over us. But as far as I can remember, I really don't remember the whole event because as a kid I kept asking, God to take it away. And I didn't tell anybody because I feared the man did say he would kill my parents. And when you're 4 and you're listening to something like that, you start saying, well, what if they did kill my parents? And that's in the book. I kept talking about my mind as a 4-year-old. I knew he was doing something wrong. But my mother kept asking me, did somebody touch you? And it's like this paralyzation came over me. And I couldn't talk, I couldn't speak, I couldn't breathe, and I kept saying, no. And I even believe she took me to the doctor, and I kept telling her no because I was scared. Because I knew my parents. When somebody tells you, they hurt your child, the first thing you do is, I'm going to take this into my hands. But
right.
I didn't want that to happen. So I just kept lying to myself. And then I lied to protect my feelings. And then it just became a natural thing. I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. And then at times I would really let people know how I felt, but it was something that was inside of me that just didn't. I wouldn't share that because I didn't want to suffer the repercussions. So that's some of the things in the book about the depression, even as a child. When someone hurts a child, I didn't know how to release that. And that just carried on to my adult life.
I see.
As a child, being molested, that you go through this trauma. it was my fault, or maybe I should have screamed, I should have did this. And there's no one that really sits down and talks to the children. And then that led to my marriage. I married too quickly. I married in the military because I got tired of being alone. And it happens to soldiers. You go from duty station to duty station. You want that companion, and then they might be leaving while you're coming. And you're only there for 2 years or 3 years at the most. So I married a person that I thought, was a good provider. He seemed like he had a good head on his shoulder. He was older than me. So I'm like, that must count for something. Right. Age must count for something. And no, he doesn't. So I married him. And then he starts showing signs of being abusive, name calling. And I'm not saying, the regular, hey, you stupid. No, you're blank, 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 blank.
Oh,
and I began to say, are you serious? You're supposed to be a Christian. And it began to show that he was not really a Christian.
Now, hate to interrupt you, but now, was this another soldier? Was this another member of the military?
This is another soldier. This is another soldier. He had gotten out the military about a couple of weeks before we got married. And he really didn't show a whole lot of warning signs that I thought is considered abuse, because I grew up in St. Louis. And there's nothing to see somebody get cursed out on the street. I grew up on one of the most dangerous parts of the city. And we always saw people getting hit, shoved, shot at, ran down the street, something like that. You always saw violence, so that became my abnormal. So that's how I began to say, okay, it's nothing wrong with it. I see people curse and fight at one another, but when you say you're Christian, your life should be different. Then I realized that he was not really trying to be a Christian, because he started heavily drinking. Then he started using drugs. And I didn't want to give up, because, they tell you as a Christian, suffer, this is your marriage. You've only been in this for a year. And some people told me to get out, but I'm like, no, I need to make this work, for
right.
better or for worse. You buy into that, not understanding that this could get worse. And if the worst gets to where my life is threatened, then I need to get out. But I stayed, because I didn't think that I was in domestic violence. To me, domestic violence was a person getting beat, broken arms, going to the hospital. And I was always raised, if you hit me, I'm going to hit you back. So we had those fights. But I kept saying, I believe God. I believe God to save him. And God did save him. He started going to church. He started cleaning his life up. But it only lasted maybe 6 to 3 months at a time. And then we had my daughter. Then I kept saying, okay, he's got to change at least for her. And he changed a little bit again for her. But he didn't change for God. And so I stayed. I was in and out. We were in and out, separated, back and forth, back and forth. And I kept saying, God, you've got to come in and do something about it. And then I began to get angry with God, and I would accuse him for my mistake. This is not something that God did. Matter of fact, on our wedding day, and I put it in the book, I was standing there. And when God starts giving you those red flags, those roadblocks, you really need to pay attention when God is saying, okay, I don't want you to do this. I didn't even get off the day for my marriage. They said you can get married at lunchtime. Wait a
minute, you didn't get the day off for your marriage.
My leave slip was not approved for my marriage. Something should have told me there.
Oh,
okay, God is telling you no.
So you literally had to get married on your lunch hour?
I had to get married on my lunch hour at City Hall. That was not the vision God gave me.
Could they have at least extended your lunch hour a little bit, or just you have an hour, you need to be back?
Hour, so you need to be back from 11:30 to 1 was our lunch hour. So we went down to City Hall, and I kept saying, okay, God, I'm going to do this. But something on the inside of me kept saying no. But I kept saying, but I've already told him I made this commitment. And so I did that. And then even at the altar, I felt weird. I felt like I was out of my element. I felt like an out-of-body experience, that God was speaking to me and saying no. But I saw this big smile on his face. I said, Lord, he's so happy. He wants to marry me. Of all women in the world, he wants to marry me. So that made me feel special. That made me feel wonderful. But on the inside, I heard this screaming say no after he said his vows. And I'm like, but God, I'm here at the altar. I don't want to be one of those runaway brides, And I said, yes. And then it felt like something had left me. How when a child displeases their parents, and you did something wrong, and you're going to displease your parents, that's how I felt. And it was like God saying, you grieved the Holy Spirit. And I was like, okay, it'll be fine. And I felt like that for a couple of days, and it wore off. And then this person that I thought was a Christian, on our honeymoon night, his friends took him and he got sloppy drunk. I kept saying,
Oh,
God, I've made a mistake.
So all the red flags basically appeared after you exchanged IDs as opposed to before. Because you said it was a quick courtship, so you really didn't have the time to...
Thank you. I didn't have the time. I was not taught that you get to know a person. You ask questions. You find out about their background. We were always taught, be pleasant, show that smiley face, that, that good part of you, be on your best behavior. Well, sometimes God is speaking to you because he sees that person's heart. I don't have to push your buttons to make you mad. All I have to do is listen to the Holy Spirit. He said, because I'll lead and guide you all truth. But what I did is I led myself into my own truth. And then I don't really remember the first time he did hit me. I know it was argument about money. And he hit me, and I looked at him like, are you crazy?
Oh, it's horrible.
And so when he hit me, it was like, okay, here comes street sense. I threw all out the Christian, the Jesus turned the other cheek up. No, I hit him in his cheek too. So I began to say, God, this can't keep happening. You need some help. So we went to counseling. Counselors told us what to do. And by that time, my daughter was getting older, and then I had to leave. I left the home. And I kept saying, I'm in the military. The military does not tolerate that. And because he was my dependent and I'm the sponsor, what they would have done was taken my child and put her in his custody. And I was like, God, I'm not going to have that.
Right, you didn't want that.
He's abusing substances. He's drinking. He's bringing all these weird people to our house. And I kept telling him, you can't keep doing that.
Now, before you got married to this person, did your family, did they approve of him, family, friends, or did people kind of say, hey, we get bad vibes from this guy?
Well, I was not on the best speaking terms with my family. My family never saw him. I got married, called my family and said, hey, I'm getting married tomorrow. I think it's tomorrow I got married. And it was like they were shocked. They never met him. And it was like, wow, she did this. At first, because I was like, well, I'm grown, a very strong-willed person. I'm grown. I'm out here on my own. I can do my own thing. And I never thought that maybe if my parents saw him, maybe they would have saw the warning signs. But, when you get on your own, I've been to Germany, I've been to different parts of the world. So, I knew it all. I'm a Christian. And to seal it is I'm a minister. God's called me, to the ministry. Right. So I know it all. That self-righteous, I know it mine got me into a lot of hurt. And we separated off and on. And I think the final straw was when my daughter came to me. And she said, Mom, I can't, in her own little way, I can't handle this. Not knowing that this was affecting her. Because, see, when you're depressed and you're always crying, your children see that. And a spirit of depression had came over me. And, yes, Christians suffered depression. I began to self-condemn myself. I kept saying, you're a failure. Look at your life. Everybody sees, oh, you're doing well. Because at one time, we had 3 incomes coming in. He was a painter. He worked in the morning painting. He worked at night doing construction. I was in Army, and we only had 1 child at that time. So we had more than enough money to buy things, and I kept saying, for better, for worse, I got to stick this out, because I kept hearing from the church, God hates divorce. God hurts divorce. Right. But no one ever breaks that down. God doesn't hate you. He hates divorce because it makes you divided. And then he said, and he spoke to me one day. He said, what I put together, let no man put asunder. Then he began to show me, I didn't put you together. You did it on your own. And every time I kept telling someone that, they was like, no, you're misinterpreting the scripture. So he led me to different books, and I did my own study. Because at times we rely on man so much, we forget that God speaks to us. It's not the Old Testament where he just speaks to Moses. He just spoke to Joshua. But God speaks to his children. And because we're his children, we have to know that God does not want us in a depressed state. He doesn't want you in harm's way. And I'm not saying run out and go divorce your husband. I'm saying ask God for a plan. Because abuse in any sense, verbal abuse, mental abuse, that's not where God wants us. And definitely when it gets to physical abuse, you cannot live that way. Because if you accidentally kill that person in the midst of a fight, you're going to jail. And what hope do your children have? So God began to show me there's a different way out. And I began to study. And I began to really say, God, I need you to speak to me. Because in the end of my life, I'm going to stand to you. I'm going to have to answer for you what I did on this earth, what I did with my life, how I raised my children. I definitely didn't want my son, as I had later on, 2 sons later at the end of the marriage, to grow up to see a father hitting me.
Right.
Or me hitting
Right.
him.
Yeah.
And then they hate women, you know.
Right. They think that's normal. They would think that's normal. So you mentioned your life story of domestic violence marriages. So there were other marriages, or just
there was another marriage. After I divorced my husband, I was so happy. Matter of fact, I think I laughed all the way in the courtroom. I could not contain myself. I said, "This is over with." I got what's called emergency divorce because of domestic violence. We were divorced in 3 days, finalized in 7, and I was so happy. But at that time, and I'm not ashamed to say it, I was not really seeking God. We were separated. And I started dating this other gentleman. And in the midst of dating him, he was a nice, kind man. He had smooth words. He, too, was older than me. So I'm thinking, okay,
Right.
you know, he's in the church. He's another church member. And I'm thinking, wow, you know, because of the position he's in, I know he's getting wisdom. I know he's getting knowledge. And he would buy my son little things, you know, because by that time I had 2 other children. And I'm like, he's buying them clothes. He must be an excellent provider. So we get married. Well, before we got married, I got pregnant. Because I started messing around with him, being depressed. All it takes is one time. Because I tell people, you don't have to keep continuing having sex. All it takes is one time to have sex. And I realized I was pregnant. I was like, listen, I don't need to see you anymore. You know, and you don't need to marry me because I'm pregnant, because God can do it. Well, you know, here comes the church again. You guys need to get married because she's pregnant. No, don't marry me because I'm pregnant. Marry me because you love me.
Now, at that point, did you see any red flags there? Or?
No, I didn't. I saw a couple, but they were not as bad as the other abnormal.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? When your gauge is off and you're gauging normal by abnormal, you're still off until you come into the light to see, hey, abnormal is abnormal, regardless it's on the scale of 10 or 5. Abnormal is abnormal.
Right.
And so for a little while, everything was going fine. And as my older son started getting, his biological child started getting older, I started seeing the favoritism. I started seeing you're making a difference between the children. And you can't do that. And so then the arguments came. And then the arguments got worse. Then it came to him leaving and coming back and leaving and coming back. Then we got into these shoving matches, and he was way bigger than me. He was built like a football player.
Right.
So I'm like, if this dude hits me, you know, God, I'm out of here. And so he did hit me at one time. And I was like, God, we separated for a while. But then, you know, the church again. And I don't fault the church. I fault myself because I should have went back to God. God, do you want me to stay here?
Right.
You know, and then it got to be where he would stop coming home on
Right.
Saturdays and stop coming here and there. And I'm like, God, okay, what now?
So during this time, I mean, are you thinking to yourself, not again?
That's
like,
exactly what I
thought. Are you kidding me? This can't be happening to me again.
That's exactly what I thought. And I would go to church and I would worship, but I'd come back home, I'm a failure. I've completely messed up my life. I can talk to other people. I can give them a good word. Why can't I do that for myself? And so
Right.
I began to say, okay, some people suffer with illness in their body. Some people may suffer with financial problems. I'm just have suffered with bad marriages. And I felt that that's the state I need to be in.
Right.
And I began to condemn myself. I would smile, but people would see in my eyes, you are so depressed. And I was
Right.
like, no, I'm fine. I'm fine. Everything's okay.
Right.
And then at one point, I wanted to end it all. I said, God, you know what? I just forget it. Let me just check out of here. But the only thing that really saved my life was my children.
Right.
If it hadn't been for them, I kept saying, if I end this all, then guess what? My children won't have any hope, and I can't have that.
Right.
So I began to cry, God, you've got to do something. I have messed my life up. I'm a failure. And God began to whisper to me, you're not a failure. You made 2 wrong decisions. It does not make you a failure. You just need me to take over your life, and you need to let go.
Right.
So when I began to let go, I saw some Christian counseling, and I began to tell them what was going on. And it was like, and I then began to say, well, you might want to stick it out a little longer. And I kept saying, God, I can't do this. So the pushing, the shovings, the threatening of hitting you, the rushing you like I'm going to hit you, that alone in itself is frightening.
Right, it is. It is.
So I began to tell God, help me. What is it that you want from me? What is it that I'm to do? And so he began to say, first, you need to let go of all the bitterness. You need to forgive him. Forgive him. Are you serious? Forgive him, Lord? God's
Right.
like, if you don't forgive him, I can't forgive you. I can't start. So I began to let it go. God began to work on me. And then I saw no change in him. I saw there was no love. I saw there was nothing there. And then I assumed in my mind, because if you're not coming home to me, you come home to somebody else. But God began to work that out. And then he began to heal me.
Right.
He began to tell me, I'm going to heal all of your broken pieces. And you can really, really smile. And so after that divorce, God began to pull me out of the depression because I would stay in my bed for hours at a time. Take a shower, put on more pajamas, and go back in the bed and be depressed.
Right.
But when God really healed me, a real smile came. It was like all these colors that were shining through this glass, this beautiful, like church glass, this stained, beautiful glass. God began to say, I made you fearfully and wonderfully made.
Absolutely. And he did, and you wrote a book from it. And I want to read a little bit from your book. I mean, it's a wonderful book. I did not listen to those who had wise counsel. I was young and strong-willed. I made up my mind that I was grown and could make my own decisions. How wrong I was, so I suffered. So that talks about, how you suffered in the beginning, but you said that God had delivered you. If we do not come to the knowledge and understanding of our purpose in life, we will not possess the power to love ourselves. And it sounds like to me, through this book, you are telling people that they need to love themselves.
Yes. You must love yourself. That's the gauge with God say how you love others. If I don't love myself, I can't love you because my gauge is off. It says, how are you going to love? The Bible says, love them like you love your own self. Well, if I hate myself, then I'm hate you too because I can't allow God to funnel his love inside of me. So when I learn how to love myself, really, I have no problem in loving people, regardless of whether they do me wrong. And I hold no animosity toward anyone. Matter of fact, me and my ex-husband or former husbands, we're on good speaking terms.
That's great. That's great.
We don't hate each other. It happened. It's over with. Years have passed. Our children are grown. I have a granddaughter. And God has healed. So he can heal you if you really want him. You don't have to remain in darkness and be depressed. Even abusers, God can heal them too. Because we take them and cast them aside. Oh, they're mean. Well, they have issues where they're broken at. And God can heal them and bring them into a greater smile too.
That's wonderful. I'm so happy that you wrote this book. It sounds, obviously, you've been through, a lot of trials, a lot of, hard times, but you were delivered, and you were able to actually write this book, Stained Glass, so that other people who may be going through similar things can be inspired to get that help and to rise,
Yes.
to a new summit. So we are so excited to have you here today and to talk about it. The book is Stained Glass, Smile, You Can Be Healed, and you have, a few websites that people can go to?
Yes, they can go to Felice Renee. That's FeliceRenee.com. They can find me on Twitter at Peace. That's PEACE, the letter N, LIVING. And they can also find me on Facebook at Peace IN Living Today. And our radio show is a stellar, I'm so happy, it's a 2017 Stellar Award nominee radio talk show. And I love talking to people and allowing them to share their story.
That's great. Felice, thank you so much for coming on to our show. We are so excited that you were here. We are almost out of time. Be sure to join us next week for more talented guests and more amazing books. My name is Rob Brown, your internet radio host and chief book lover. Please stop by www.forbookloversonly.com and pick up a copy of Stained Glass. It's a wonderful read, and it will definitely inspire you. This is For Book Lovers Only Live Radio, where if you love books, we have a home for you. Take care, and we will see you in 1 week.